Pacers Knicks.
Yeah.
I was in Indiana. I made a Patrick Ewing head on a stick, which they eventually confiscated for some reason. And as I was walking to my seat, it just felt like universe. I see Patrick Ewing and Clyde Frazier sitting next to each other. Like, what? When does one see that, especially outside of New York? So I run up to them. I think I'd met Patrick like the season or the series prior with Boston. So at least I looked familiar, and I know his son. So I didn't seem like some crazy fan. I looked a little familiar. And I was like, in my head, I'm thinking this is about to be the best photo of all time. They weren't that amused, but I was having a great time. Nice to see a culture shift. And so now it's a culture of winning, and players are coming to the Knicks because they expect to win. And we've just created a nucleus. And I think that's important because for the longest time, we were like a revolving door of talent. We were the place where like all-stars or like legends would come for their last 2 seasons, you know? People forget that we had like Steve Francis and like McGrady.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And so now it's just nice to have a real team with real potential. Disruption gets people to turn their heads. And now that we exist in a time where we're just constantly scrolling and always distracted, how are you going to get that consumer to turn their head, to get them to say, holy shit, what is that? You know? And so that is the role or the responsibility that we have as designers. And I think that working at a place like that helped me realize that.
All right, here we go. Salute to Knicks Nation. Special edition of KFTV, man. We got a great interview for you guys today. Joining us today is a diehard Knicks fan, but most importantly, in the daytime, he's a signature footwear designer, man. He's designed for Yeezy, Versace, collaborated with a number of brands. His Crocs are incredible right now. New Balance, Puma, you name it. We got the good brother Salehe Bembury joining us on KFTV. Salehe, welcome to KFTV, man. Thanks for joining the show.
Thank you for having me. First, I got to correct you, Bembury. A lot of people say Bembury. No, it's totally fine. We should keep this in so people know how to pronounce it. So, yeah. But yeah, thank you for having me. What's funny, you know, I'm a native New Yorker, and since moving to Los Angeles now, it's been like 10 years, I have come to appreciate and notice the New York accent because I don't get to hear it too often. And what's interesting about your New York accent, it just feels so of the fabric of New York. Yeah. I kind of like love to hear you speak. I'm surprised you haven't gotten some voiceover money yet.
Man, you know what? We've gotten those opportunities. We're gonna keep those tryouts coming through, man. So you might see me on the next, Amex commercial or something like that. But that's the Long Island with me, man. Just growing up with all these Italians and whatnot, you kind of get that. You know what I mean?
I love it.
What are your thoughts? What are your thoughts on what you just witnessed?
I hate it, but I gotta give Knicks credit, man. Hey,
y'all suck, bro.
You know what I mean?
One of the things I loved about you, especially last year in the backdrop of the Knicks' historic run, was the games that you were at, like being in Boston, being in Indiana for signature games. I mean, just tell me about what that run meant to you and being there in person.
Well, for one, it kills me, it's hard to be a Knicks fan on the West Coast. For one, the games start 3 hours earlier, or 3 hours.
Yeah, earlier.
Yeah, earlier. So, just schedule-wise, if I'm trying to still have a career, it's tough to watch Knicks games at 4 p.m. So the relationship with the Knicks have changed since moving to the West Coast. Shout out Puma for helping me get to those games, because as I'm sure you know, those are some extremely expensive tickets. And those were some amazing games. I mean, the best part of that was probably being like in head-to-toe Knicks gear while everyone was behind me was either in full Pacers gear or full Celtics gear. So, those were some great experiences.
You went in there repping, and I love the picture in front of Clyde and Patrick Ewing. Like, those are like two of my favorite Knicks of all time. Like that, you look like you represented the entire Knicks Nation. Just the look on your face. And the elation in being in front of those two guys, it was incredible.
Yeah, so that was for Pacers Knicks.
Yeah.
I was in Indiana. I made a Patrick Ewing head on a stick, which they eventually confiscated for some reason. And as I was walking to my seat, it just felt like universe. I see Patrick Ewing and Clyde Frazier sitting next to each other. Like, when does one see that, especially outside of New York? So I run up to them. I think I'd met Patrick like the season or the series prior with Boston. So at least I looked familiar, and I know his son, so I didn't seem like some crazy fan. I looked a little familiar, and I was like, in my head, I'm thinking this is about to be the best photo of all time. They weren't that amused, but but I was having a great time.
What's your thoughts on the state of the team at the time of this recording? 6-3 in the East right now. New coach, couple new players in tow. What do you think?
So for one, I was very surprised to see us get a new coach. I almost didn't think what D'Antoni was doing. Did I just say Mike? Did I just say D'Antoni? What did I just say?
Yeah, Thibodeau. Yeah, you said D'Antoni, but Thibodeau.
Sorry,
Okay.
not D'Antoni.
Yeah.
Thibodeau. What Thibodeau was doing and where he brought us last season were lands and places that we hadn't seen in a very, very long time. You have more conversations about this stuff than I do, so you might have better insight. But I felt like he should stay. I felt like he really brought a lot of talent out of players that maybe weren't used to being role players and created a team that wasn't used to necessarily being in the position they were in. So I was surprised to see him go, but turning a new chapter, new page. I've loved seeing what Mike Brown has been doing, and I think we have a lot of potential. And I also think the East is in a position where, regardless of our potential, we're probably going to have more success because of what's going on in the East.
Yeah, I think at this early stage, there's a lot to like. They seem to be improving on their chemistry, especially the guys that have been teammates for year over year. Mikal Bridges has talked about him and OG, them connecting. Jalen Brunson has talked about that importance. And the scary thing is that the offense right now, top 2, top 3 in the league, and they keep saying, hey, listen, we got a long way to go. So to see them going out there, they're putting up 130 points here, there. It's going to be scary, man, once they really bring together.
Talk to me about your perspective on Tyler Kolek.
The creator, he's a good player, but he's on the outside looking in terms of the rotation. I think, his defense and his three-point shooting is what's going to get him on the floor. But right now, the guard rotation is so stacked they don't really need him. So he's kind of on the outside looking in. But Clarkson, Deuce, Josh Hart, like those guys have kind of picked up that backup point guard responsibility, because that was kind of a hole going into the season. Malcolm Brogdon announcing his retirement kind of surprised the team, and they were hoping that he was going to make the team. So it wasn't even clear if Tyler was going to be on the team, but I think right now he's on the outside looking in, but you just never know. Injuries could happen, and he could find his way back into the rotation.
He plays like a young Steve Nash. What did you call him? You call him the creator?
Yeah, they call him the creator. We
Never heard that.
Creator, man. Yeah, with a K, we call him the creator, man.
It's also just been nice to see a shift in culture because I've always been one of those. I don't know if I want to call myself delusional Knicks fans or maybe proud.
We all are proud.
But I was one of those Knicks fans, or still am, that believe every season is our season, right?
Yeah.
Nice to see a culture shift, and so now it's a culture of winning, and players are coming to the Knicks because they expect to win, and we've just created a nucleus, and I think that's important because for the longest time, we were like a revolving door of talent. We were the place where like all-stars or like legends would come for their last 2 seasons, People forget that we had like Steve Francis and like McGrady.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so now it's just nice to have a real team with real potential,
100%. And we've come a long way. It just seemed like from like 2001 to like all the way through. Melo had a couple of years and they made the playoffs, and 2012-13, they had that second seed. But really, by and large, that 20-year stretch, it was brutal, man. It was like the Dark Ages.
I'm a massive Carmelo Anthony fan. I would love to be on 7:30 in Brooklyn, so I'm going to shout that out now if you're watching. But I will say, if we're talking about culture shift, I remember for the longest time we were statistically bad, and then we had that team with Wilson Chandler and Danilo, and you could probably list a lot more players than I can because my memory is not probably what yours is. But it felt like that team was kind of the same culture shift that's happening now. We were getting rebounds. We were penetrating.
Yeah.
It was this young talent. And then all of a sudden it felt like that was broken up, and then they turned into the New York Nuggets. Carmelo. And it's debatable, the success that we had with him compared to what we could have had with that team. But it felt like the shift that's happening now was happening then.
Yeah, that's true. Melo, your favorite player of all time? Who's your
Melo?
favorite? Who's your favorite Knick? Who's your favorite Knick of all time? Is Melo?
Favorite Knick of all time? I wouldn't say it's Melo. That's tough. I mean, I almost want to just shout out, like, let's just shout out Patrick Ewing, Hubert Davis, Derek Harper, John Starks, Charlie Ward, Charles Smith, Allen Houston. Who else do we want to shout out? What was dude's name? Oh, was it Steve Novak or Matt Novak?
Steve Novak. Steve Novak.
Yeah,
Nova King.
Let's shout out Steve Novak.
Yeah.
Novak. Let's shout out Steve Francis and Tracy McGrady.
100%.
So I don't know if I have a favorite. I've just been the Knicks. The Knicks have just been such a consistent part of my fabric for my entire childhood. Going to the games, Spike Lee. We are the New York Knicks. And then strangely, like even having the feeling of like so much glory in getting close to the glory. Like, so, like 94, even the moments where we lost, strangely, like being a Knicks fan, those were almost wins in a weird way. And so, yeah, I don't know if I have a favorite, but I almost just see the teams as chapters. So I just see these different groupings of teams, and they didn't blur really. So I kind of like, just like I was talking about, like the Wilson Chandler, Danilo moment, that felt like that was a team, and it felt like the Porzingis team was like a team. Yeah. And then now it just feels like we finally have like a proper team where everyone's playing a role, and even just seeing just little things like seeing like OG on a fast break making the layup. Like there were just so many moments where there would just be these like fundamental things where we weren't like
you like,
doing.
Oh man,
and just to have like a finisher like OG, it's like now I don't get nervous if he's like hitting a pull up like midi on like a fast break. I know he's gonna hit that, and it's nice to have players that fulfill that role.
It's funny. Last week I did a mailbag show, and somebody asked the question like, "Why are we as Knicks fans just so die hard for this team just through all these years?" And it's something that you hit on was like, even when they never got the chip, like those days, seeing them win and seeing them on that journey, because we're all on that journey, right? But seeing them on that journey, to me, well, that's what got me into sports as a whole. It's just, the unscripted storytelling that just kind of unfolds every second live, right? It's totally unscripted. And so that's what drew me into that team. And it was those 90s teams, man. It was those 90s teams trying to get Jordan and them up out of here, coming super close. Yeah. And then obviously Game 7 with the Rockets, so many nightmares, but it was that pursuit that we still chase to this day.
And strangely, it doesn't seem that long ago. Like, I don't know how old you are. I'm 39, but strangely,
41.
Those don't seem like that long ago.
Yeah, not at all. What's the I ran into your opening night at the Garden. What's that Garden experience for you like now compared to, coming up as a kid and again, your childhood, but like now you're in the mix, you're front court, you're courtside. What's that experience like for you?
Well, that's number one, is just me, getting the access to be able to be courtside, that changes the perspective of the game.
Yeah.
One thing that really tripped me out was I forget who they were playing. Who were they playing? Maybe the Cavs? I forget. I think they were playing the Cavs. But I was just cheering. I yelled out, "Fuck!" And the guard right next to me was like, "Excuse me, sir. Like, I know you're enjoying the game, but you cannot yell fuck in the Garden." And that I was really just. The fact that someone was telling me not to yell "fuck," Madison Square Garden, I think was extremely representative of how things have changed. And then also another way that has changed is that sweet hot dog smell.
Yeah.
Now gone.
You don't have it. It's lobster ravioli coming from the Delta Lounge. This is a lobster ravioli.
There's all kinds of different. There used to just be sweet hot dog smell.
Yeah,
that was the Garden smell. Gone.
Yeah, or the burnt pretzel. The burnt pretzel that came from the carts? That was it. Circus, Knick game, Ranger game, that was it. You know what I'm saying? And that,
did you say, just quick subject change?
Yeah.
You have not gotten a voiceover check yet?
I haven't, man. I haven't.
Bro.
I'm trying. I got to call the right people.
New York.
Yeah, I got to call the right people, man.
Yeah, dude. Maybe this will put it out there. You just like New York.
For sure.
Yeah.
When you think about your design style, is there a particular Knick you think about? Like, this Knick just coming up kind of like matches like how you approach your craft?
So, maybe like a Latrell Sprewell because he was like a disruptor. And within my work, I like to disrupt. I mean, shit, he was so much of a disruptor. He didn't like what the coach said, and he choked him. So that's what I'm trying. That's what I'm trying to do with the consumer. I'm trying to choke out the consumer with my work, design work.
Yeah, 100%.
Strangely, it feels like sometimes players when they come to the Knicks, it's almost like on some superhero like Marvel shit.
Yeah, yeah.
Really like assume the responsibility and the power and the status that is being a New York Knick. Like even just seeing Clarkson in the past like 9 games, like he's a Knick. Like I feel like now, like when his career is over, he'll be remembered more as a Knick than as a Utah Jazz member or player. And obviously, it's only been like 9 games, so I'm being a little prematurely. But again, like similar to what OG brings, Jordan brings a very specific talent, a very specific hustle, a very specific grit that we'll probably need in the playoffs, you know?
Yeah.
Like his square up, we'll need that in the playoffs. I'm not talking about his game. I'm talking about his square up.
Right.
That's the kind of stuff we need in the playoffs. You know what I mean? And so it's nice to, assume these players.
Yeah, we got to get gritty. We call it the once a Knick, always Knick barbecue. It don't take much to get invited back to the barbecue. Like you see the players that they bring back during the playoffs. I call it the Legends Lounge where they have them all sitting there. It's like Starberry, Nate Robinson, Novak. They bring everybody. Wilson Chandler came back one night. They bring everybody back, man.
Yep.
Yeah, for sure. What did it mean for you? You recently did the collab with Mitchell and Ness and the Knicks that dropped on Fanatics Fest. My guy Luis Guzman, he came on the show. We just had Luis on the show a couple of weeks ago. The jacket, jersey, fire. What did it mean to you to do that collab?
So my buddy Aaron Levant hits me up, and he is at Complex, and he hits me up and he's like, "Hey, do you want to do a Knicks collaboration?" And I immediately said yes. And I thought it was great because given that I'm in Los Angeles, I was like, this helps me maintain my connection to the Knicks. And the opportunity was for a hat, a jacket, and a jersey. We didn't end up doing the hat. I wasn't a fan of the silhouette. And then I just really thought about how I could inject my personal brand DNA into the Knicks brand silhouette that's really recognizable. And I immediately, I guess, asked myself how far I could push the needle where it didn't feel like I was trying to make it a Salehe jacket, but I was still honoring the heritage that is the New York Knicks. This is the jacket.
Yep.
Hard to see it, but that gives you some kind of perspective. What it features is my take on a real tree camo pattern, but it consists of cacti. And that's, I guess, through inspiration of being in the Southwest and California and a lot of the time that I spend in the outdoors. It's around me all the time. So I was like, you know what? That'd be a great thing to inject into this collaboration. Half Knicks, half my brand. It feels like both identities still get to shine. It releases on November 21st. So the timing of this interview is appropriate. It almost seems like I planned it out this way, you know?
So you're on a roll right now, man.
So outside of this, I've been on a book tour. I just released a book. It's called Salehe, I Make Shoes. It is published by Rizzoli. It released about almost a month ago. So I've been on a book tour for that. I've also recently launched a footwear brand that's called Sponge. It released around the same time. So I've been touring that. But this, I almost didn't think of this as even a part of that. I'm just a Knicks fan. I've seen you doing your thing for so long on IG. So I was just honored to be on this, talk Knicks. I'm happy to plug whatever I'm making, but I'm here to talk Knicks.
Yeah, no question. It's a fire collab. Luis said he rocked the jacket. He brought the jacket to the interview. Great guy, stand-up guy. And how'd you guys choose him to be part of the promotion?
So I just think everyone I work with, I just want it to make sense. I want the audience to look at it and be like, like not only does that make sense for his brand, but that maybe makes sense for what they're promoting. And so with this project, I was like, okay, this is a Knicks collaboration. I am a native New Yorker. There's a very small handful of people that I think fulfill this role of the Knicks. And they have to be a fan. They have to be a New Yorker. Because I really want the New York Knicks audience and the native New Yorkers to really understand that I'm speaking that language and I didn't try to fake it. And so Luis being the OG that he is, me being a massive fan of How to Make It in America, seeing so many Knicks games, it made sense. I'm trying to figure out how I got in touch with him. That I don't
Mm,
remember. It was through his manager Michael, who was very helpful.
mm.
His name was Michael. I want to make sure I got that right. And then yeah, we knocked it out really quick. We probably did the shoot in about an hour, and he was really flexible and easy. And I think he was probably the most appropriate person for the promotion.
Yeah, for sure. How to Make It in America was a classic.
Yeah.
We talked about that on our interview. And we dropped that clip on Instagram. People still talking about it. Dropped a clip like maybe 2 weeks ago. People still talking about it every day. And I told him, I was like, part of that made me hustle to do this as a side hustle. So definitely.
I was living that exact existence
Yeah.
when that show was out. It was like post college. I had a t-shirt brand. I was trying to figure it out. So I just feel like they embodied that existence like perfectly.
A separate topic, but you mentioned as part of the elements of the jacket with the cacti represented just the terrain that you were used to back out west and in the Southwest. And I noticed, especially when on your marketing and your branding, especially on your IG, a lot of hiking.
Yes.
Is that a passion of yours? I just started getting into it, man. Is that a passion of yours?
Yes. So I mean, listen, like growing up in New York, it's something that would be a lot more difficult to do, right? Like I've always kind of compared going on a hike in New York to like going to Woodbury Commons. Like that's about the distance. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
And then
yeah.
like the next day you're resting from the amount of commuting and movement that you did, right? So the beauty of I guess my relationship with nature in LA is just proximity. I'm able to do these beautiful hikes that are about 15 minutes from my house. So it's something that I can easily access. And so I just started doing it in Los Angeles, started sharing it on my social media. It indirectly started inspiring my work. Um, and then I guess simultaneously with becoming like this independent designer where I have my name on things and I was looking for a source of inspiration, the outdoors was something that I was in so frequently that it just happened organically. And so you see that in a lot of my work, whether
Yeah.
it's through utility of solving for, I guess, what's needed in nature or using the color palettes or shapes or tones that you'd find in nature as well.
Yeah, you see it in a lot of the work, and it's really beautiful how those colors come together. You did send me the Crocs that you did, the I forget the color, the yellow color with the Pollux, and
Yes,
then
those are called yoke.
the yolks, yeah,
Yes, yes.
yeah, real cool colors, and then the sandals as well,
Oh, nice.
like the eggplant sandals. Those were
Gotta get you
fire.
some. We gotta get you some orange or blue colors.
Yeah, yeah. Did you ever like think about Nick colors in any of your previous collabs?
So within these collaborations, you start to learn about like partnerships and sponsorships and contracts, and so I just thought to myself, if I ever did a Knicks colorway, I would want it to be official. You know what I mean? I've definitely had some colors in the past that people have commented like, "Oh, it looks like the Knicks," and maybe on some subconscious level it is. But I think I want to hold that color combination off until it's actually a real collaboration.
Your time with Yeezy. A lot of
Yes.
people recognize your work during that time. A short stint. What did you take away from that time? What did you learn from your experience working at Yeezy?
So yeah, it was about a year, a little over a year. I think I learned about the importance of disruption. Spending so much time in my career, I guess, trying to follow trends or chase consumers or follow what's maybe already been done. At a place like Yeezy, it was really about disruption, independent thought. And I think that's important when creating because you're introducing something new into a market that potentially doesn't have it. So you really need to be coming from a place of independent thought and disruption gets people to turn their heads. And now that we exist in a time where we're just constantly scrolling and always distracted, how are you going to get that consumer to turn their head, to get them to say, holy shit, what is that? You know? And so that is the role or the responsibility that we have as designers. And I think that working at a place like that helped me realize that.
How much of that came from working with Ye? Like, how much of that was like his influence in the way that you went about the day to day, design process and collaboration?
I would say all of it. All of it was just simply because that man doesn't really see walls or obstacles. And maybe the version of him now might even be a different version that than existed then. But at the end of the day, the version of him now is just an evolved version of what he was then. So, yeah, I think it was really just inspirational to see someone that didn't see obstacles because, again, often and within jobs, often with employers, it's nothing but obstacles. It's nothing but deadlines. It's nothing but no's. So getting to work for someone that was simply about making and exploration ultimately inspired kind of my journey with how I approach creativity.
When you launched Sponge, what was the impetus behind launching it? Because you're collaborating, you're designing for all these major fashion houses and brands. What pushed you to launch Sponge?
So I've existed in the footwear industry for the last 15 years. That book that I mentioned is a chronological retrospective of that time spent. And during that period of time, I would say the primary thing I've been doing is learning. I've been soaking up game. My brand is called Sponge because I think the most important thing you can be is a sponge, constantly absorbing. And it really felt appropriate to create my own brand because I felt like I've soaked up all of the game in the industry. I've gone from small startup to Yeezy to high fashion brand to corporation. And I really wanted to take all of those learnings and create something that was my own. I've given a lot of influence and sauce to a lot of the brands that I've worked for, and very grateful from what I've received, both fiscally and I guess the education as well. But I think it's now time for me to take all of those learnings and show the world what I'm able to do on my own.
Was that always the goal, or was that something that over time and experience you felt like, okay, now I need to make a shift ultimately and do my own thing?
I think truthfully, what you've witnessed in the last decade or however long you've been tuned in, none of this was really the goal of the plan. My goal was to just, no, I don't say just, I always say that incorrectly, not just, but my goal was to work at a footwear brand and have a 9 to 5 job. And that was what I wanted to do ever since I was a little kid. And then pretty much all of these collaborative things and all of this success and high fashion was not remotely in the plan. But I think being a New Yorker and being someone that is opportunistic about opportunities that are put in front of me, I've capitalized on these things that have been put at my doorstep, or at least some of them have.
And certainly, I'm sure the prospects of ownership was very much important to you, especially people, African Americans, in terms of entrepreneurship. And a lot of the times we're kind of on the outside looking in some of these opportunities. So I know myself, I certainly value the power of ownership just in terms of building and scaling a brand.
I think that's number one. And I think even what's more so fascinating to observe is those that have tried it in the past have not necessarily succeeded. And I remember seeing like big baller brand star, and I was really excited because, the NBA has existed within these maybe like 5 or 6 footwear glides for so long. And these players have opportunity to create their own brands, but it's maybe about the lack of resources or education for them to do so. So when I saw big baller start, I was like, oh my God, this is finally happening. But because maybe, I don't know, a combination of things, but maybe one of them was the quality, the brand did not succeed. There have been a few other brands that have attempted, but they have not reached the level of some of the Goliaths in the space. And that's what I am trying to achieve. So yeah, it's about ownership, but it's also about tackling a space that has not been conquered before.
When you launched it, do you think about potential like conflicts or competing with a lot of the companies that you've collaborated with in the past? Like, do you think about that?
I think the most important thing is the ability to tell different stories. I think a product is nothing without its story. And so if you look within the stories that I've told, some have existed within the outdoors, but now being with Puma and this Haliburton project, it's a basketball story. And I think that allows me to not only diversify my brand and, be able to speak to different audiences, but it doesn't, I guess, blur or pollute the waters of storytelling.
What do you think has been the art of storytelling for you? Is that something that has come natural to you? Is it more collaboration with other creatives? Like, how have you been able to do that so well on your social channels and overall, just your overall distribution?
Yeah, so going back to the theme of childhood nostalgia and learning and soaking things up, a lot of what I do is somewhat of a regurgitation of what was working on me as a child. You know, some of those classic Wieden and Kennedy campaigns that made us all like love shoes or think we could fly or think that we were cool. I'm trying to recreate those moments. You know, I think within design and marketing, we get people to feel. And so with a lot of my campaigns, I've tried to get people to laugh and use humor as a vehicle to get people to pay attention or simply stop scrolling for a second. I'm not one of those people, but there are some people that go through an entire day without laughing, right? So how can I give them that gift of joy? And then maybe that's attached to a product, and maybe that's attached to a message. And then also potentially it makes you feel like you are being welcomed into a community, which is what this is all about, not only with product, but even with this thing, right? Like I felt like when I went up to you at the garden, I dapped you up. I kind of felt like you were like a family member at like the cookout. Didn't feel like you were a stranger. And that's, I think, the community that exists within sports, basketball, or maybe more specifically footwear.
Yeah, I was going to mention that word as well, because that's what I noticed, especially on your drops and how you, again, promote and market these drops, is that community feel. And that's definitely what I tell people is we talk basketball and whatever on a daily, but behind that, it's a community. We're in New York. We go out to LA, packed house out there. We Miami here, there. Like, it's a community everywhere that kind of is behind the brand. That's really the foundation.
Yeah, absolutely. And then now even just like, you know, living on the West Coast or even with traveling, whenever I see someone wearing some Knicks shit, it feels like some very like at home comfort. I almost want to hug them. I don't.
100%. Did you send Haliburton regards from New York? What was that? What was it like working with Haliburton on the Puma collab?
Yeah, so the way I'll give you some context for that. So I signed with Puma. This collaboration is a little bit different because not only do they want me to design a shoe, they want me to be a part of the selection process of the signature athlete, and then also the marketing and really the whole package. And this is something I haven't done before. I'm excited. I grew up hooping, so not only is this something I'm excited for, but it also is going to get to come from a place of authenticity. And I don't know if my audience realizes this, but I'm excited to kind of tell this story. They give me a list of athletes. I choose Tyrese. I was actually with my buddy Adam Lefko, who's on TNT. We went to college together. We were on the other day. He helped me remember that actually he was a part of this selection process because I accessed him for his expertise, and he was like, Tyrese for sure. So I correct my story because I've been telling people that I saw what he did to us in the previous playoffs, which was also true. But I want to shout out Adam Lefko for contributing to that movement. And then I'll speak about the Knicks thing, but first it was about creating a shoe for him, building a signature athlete brand, and again, community. He has his fan base, but now we're creating a shoe, we're creating apparel, all of these marketing moments. How do we do that? And then I'm trying to like choose my words with the Knicks in regards to the Knicks thing.
Yeah.
I said this on the Joe Budden podcast, and I want to be a little bit more articulate here. On the Joe Budden podcast, I said, what are you choosing, your career or your team? Easy answer, right? But then at the same time, you know, I am a lifelong Knicks fan. Anytime I'm around Tyrese, I let him know that we have a hilarious rapport in regards to that. But at the same time, I've made it very clear what my priorities are, and that is my career, and that is his brand. And I think the two can live simultaneously. Like, let's say when he's back from injury, if the Pacers and the Knicks find themselves in the playoffs against each other, he knows that I would be courtside talking shit.
Yeah,
like he knows, like probably saying like really personal things. Like he almost wouldn't recognize me, right? So as long as he knows that, and we can do that, we can play that game respectfully. It's just they're just kind of like two different movements. The blood is still blue, but I'm working with a really talented player that is allowing me to make basketball shoes and, tell a different story.
That was one of the things last year in the playoff run, is being outside of MSG. One of the things I'll never forget, man. The energy was crazy. Were you in any of those mosh pits during the playoffs last year?
No, because I don't think I never went to a New York game. It was always
that's
in
right.
Indiana. Yeah. I have video, and actually I'm gonna send this to you you can listen to the interview.
Yeah.
After we won in Boston, I'm like going down the escalator, like talking shit to all the fans. It was great.
We was going crazy those first 2 games against Boston, and hopefully they can go on another historic run. Shout
out Side Talk. Are they called Side Talk?
Yes.
Yeah, shout out Side Talk.
Shout out to Side Talk, man.
They're doing amazing work.
For sure. How did you reflect on the Osmosis sneaker drop?
Yeah, so it's still kind of happening. We're somewhat still in the midst of it. So there is a global launch for retailers. I am about to go to Japan to launch it. Did I? I didn't publicize this yet. So I'm going to launch it in a store in Japan. I'll just say that. Another version of the shoe at a store in Japan. And so the most important thing, I guess, with this brand is just, I guess, for one, to continue having moments. 2, I'm every day trying to teach my consumer that I am existing outside of collaborations and that this is a brand, which is important because for the last, 7 years, my consumer has been very familiar with these one-off hype moments where I'm pulling something exciting from behind my back and then it ends and then I move on to the next thing. And so this is something that will always be on and always be available. And eventually anyone that wants Sponge footwear will be able to get it. So right now I'm laying the groundwork. We just had a pop-up at Complex Con. It looked really, really good, if I do say so myself.
Yeah.
As a brand or in any instance, you only have one opportunity to make a first impression. So right now I believe we're laying those initial bricks. And it's funny because with this brand launch, I've been getting so many congratulations, and strangely, I don't feel like I've warranted the congratulations yet because I feel like anyone can make a brand. What I'm now on the road to doing is getting those congratulations like a year, because I feel like a brand has to stick around and succeed and have tangible moments in order to be considered a brand. So while I'm appreciative of everyone congratulating me, come see me in a year.
I make shoes.
Yes.
Congratulations on that.
Boom.
There we go.
This is the book. It's 268 pages. It was published by Rizzoli.
Okay.
The cover features a painting by Delphin Finley.
Nice.
And it features about 18 chapters of nostalgia and my career and free game and sketches and an Andre 3000 conversation. And yeah, I've been to so many different locations in my career. I'm somewhat of a pioneer in my space. The book is representative of a young designer that was trying to figure it out, the highs, the lows, the getting fired, the quittings, the extreme success. It's very much so a curtain pullback book where I'm showing people the things they often don't get to see. And I guess for those that are familiar with just the space of hype or sneakerheads, if you will, there aren't many books that exist in our space that kind of honor this obsession that a lot of people have. And I'm really excited for this book to kind of join that. And then also, having very recently been one, I know there's a lot of young creatives out there that are either already on their journey or curious about how to get into the space. And I think that this book gives a lot of perspective on that, because in the beginning, I didn't know what the fuck I was doing. And I was spending a lot of time on Craigslist and job sites and LinkedIn trying to put myself out there. And so I would say if this book is representative of anything, it's representative of what happens when you are curious and what happens when you ask questions and really put yourself out there. And this book is the result.
There we go. Is it going to be a limited drop or? So
it's a Rizzoli release. So
yeah.
Their quantities, I wouldn't say are limited because they're sold all over the world. You can just check local Rizzoli retailers.
Yeah.
I am going to be doing some limited releases of the book that come in a wooden case with some
that we saw. Yep.
accessories. that'll be releasing in the near future. And the book tour will continue. So I'm going to also be popping up in some different places around the world to have some conversations, sign some books, and press some palms.
There we go. Well, definitely good luck on that. And I've been, for the past couple of years, I've been working at NBA Summer League and teaching a course to students on building a brand. If you had one big personal branding tip, because like I said, I mean, your Instagram, you tell stories very well. You show a lot of that behind the scenes content, the community aspect. But if you had one personal branding tip, what would it be?
I would just say the importance of documentation is overlooked because now we're conditioned to document, but in a very polished, premeditated way that's only meant for social media. And I was saying on another podcast, I really wish I just had a picture simply of my first day at work, right? Just me looking unsure, maybe my khakis don't fit right, but that was so long ago. I really wish I had that photo. So now if I can encourage anyone out there listening to simply just document, take as many pictures as possible and keep them somewhere because there might be a day where you get the opportunity to make a book or you're maybe working on a documentary or maybe simply you're just trying to analyze and critique your work or maybe the growth in self or how you dress or whatever it is. Documentation is really important. Documentation without the purpose of public consumption or maybe initial public consumption.
Yeah, but one person I really admired with that is I know Bobbito Garcia. Bobbito, he was on this show a couple months back.
Where'd you get those?
Yeah, and I mean, his archives go all the way back, and he was just, as you said, documenting without the purpose of making it public, because back then social media wasn't really anything. But the way he documented just NYC streetball and his journey through it, it was incredible.
Yeah, I mean, even the other day, I just took a picture of these robots that are coming out soon that are meant to help your home or something.
Yeah.
And there was a wheat paste of it on the street, and then the street was surrounded by graffiti, and it just felt like such a strange, like futuristic dystopian image of like this robot that's coming, but then with graffiti around it. And I had to take a picture of it because I was like, this is history. Because 10 years from now, these robots and all of this AI stuff is probably going to be everywhere.
Yeah.
And so to see this image as like the beginning of it, I had to document it. So maybe an example of documentation without the purpose of consumption.
How do you feel about AI? Like, are you using it on offense? Are you guarding against it defensively? How do you, as a designer, what do you think about it?
I think it's important to use the tools that have been placed in front of us, because if not, you'll become obsolete. A friend of mine recently said, you either go with time or you go with time. Every job I've worked at, there's always been one person that does not use Photoshop or Illustrator. They simply hand sketch because whenever that program was introduced, they did not make the switch. And because of that, they move slower and they are ultimately becoming a dinosaur. And so in regards to AI, it's something that definitely initially scared me because I was like, is this going to make me obsolete? But then no, I realized it's something that's a tool that isn't meant to by any means replace creativity, but it's meant to help me expand my bandwidth, save time. Let's say like I'm designing your hat, like your KFTV hat, and the design is done, but then there's that white drop shadow, and I want to see that white drop shadow maybe made out of dots. I want to see it made out of lines. I want to see it in like 5 different colors, and I want to see it like metallic gold or something, right? Just as to give a very like surface level example, the amount of time it would take me to click around and create that, opposed to just simply telling AI, hey, make me one with dots, one with gold, and then that would happen in seconds. That is an expansion of bandwidth, and that ultimately is opening up our ability to do more and to make more and create. And so I'm even working on a project right now. Should I say? Yeah, I'm working on like a speaker project right now, where when I wanted to describe it with my collaborator, I was about to take the next like hour to sketch it out, right? And then I was like, wait a minute, I can just like say what this is. And within maybe 3 minutes, there was a perfect rendering of exactly what I wanted it to be. Now, is this the design? No. Is it replacing creativity? No. But this is now the thing I'm using to call this guy with and explain to him what my idea is. And I've now created this in like 30 seconds, whereas it probably would have taken me an hour to sketch this out. And so I think it's an amazing tool to expand the mind. And I think anyone that's fighting against it is ultimately going to become obsolete because the world is moving at an extremely fast rate. And even outside of like business, even just to positively affect your life, there's a lot of resource in AI.
Very, very well said, man. Well, listen, we wish you the best of luck. You got a lot on your hands, a lot of great things. The book tour, the brand launch. We wish you a lot of luck on your journey. Continued success to you. And come playoff time, man, you got to come through. Come to the Garden. Let's go to a game. You'll pull up to a KFTV watch party. We got to get you fully ingrained in the KFTV experience. Even out west. So shout out my guy, Jesus Nice. We got the Left Coast Knicks. We're over at 33 Taps in Silver Lake. If you ever out there.
Oh, for real? I've seen them over there. Okay, yeah.
Just pull up on my guys over there. You know, we go to Vegas together. We do a collaboration in Vegas with our guys over there. So we got to get you further ingrained in the community, man. But this was a good start.
I want some merch. I'm definitely pulling up when I'm in New York. Yo, if you just want to call me for the live show just to get some opinion on a dunk, I'm cool with that too. Man.
We gotta get you. Do you have a Discord? Are you in a Discord?
No, I'm 39. I don't know what that is. Actually, I do.
Come on, man.
I'm not that plugged in.
Bro, I'm 41. I had to get with the times, man. Just like you said, you might be obsolete.
I talk about becoming obsolete and shit, right?
Yeah, I had no idea about the Discord, but shout out one of my moderators. He set the whole thing up, and I got to catch up with the times, man, with the young whippersnappers, man.
And we need to send you this as well.
Yep, absolutely, man, absolutely. I'll send it to your peoples, man, and let's catch up as the season progresses for sure, man. Thanks again for the time.
Yo, get that voiceover check. I'm not joking, man. You can be fucking like a spunky pit bull or something. Like,
I'm gonna call Morgan Freeman, man, and ask him how to get the job done, man. I'm gonna call my guy Morgan Freeman.
I'll make some calls for you, bro.
For sure. Thanks again, my guy.
Good to meet you, man. Have a good day.
All right, you too, man.